Hello, I'm ABX2Cat and welcome back to another second channel video. Today I'm doing a little bit of a vlog, which you can probably already tell because I'm staring you in the eyes right now. But I wanted to do this vlog just to kind of, talk about something that I really quite like, which is travel. Because I just booked another travel for January. I'm going to Bratislava in Slovakia, or Czechoslovakia if you want to be old-fashioned. And a lot of people see that I travel every month or two and they're like, Toycat, you rolling around in that YouTube money or something? And the reality isn't that, what a lot of people think, where it's like, oh, if you want to go from one country for a few days, that's going to cost you the better part of $1,000. In fact, if you're flying from anywhere in Europe, or if you're going from anywhere in Europe to anywhere else in Europe, you can do it for really, really cheap. I wanted to explain how in this video, because there's no class in school on how to save money while traveling, and I don't think there should be, but there are lots of tips I picked up over my time that might just help you out, Mr. Traveler, or Mr. Viewer that wants to be a traveler. So yeah, I'll be explaining how to travel for the cheaps. So if you want to do it, or if you're just curious, you can learn about it. So like the video if you like it. Probably won't do more of these, I'll be honest here. It's just something I wanted to talk about because, like I said, I just went through the whole process. So I thought I'd share the whole process. So how do you save money? So if you don't want to listen to any more, I'll enshrine the two principles. Flexibility. Be flexible. Don't be like, I need to travel on the 13th, or I need to travel on Saturdays, on full moons only. That's not a very good thing to do. You need to, the more flexibility you have, the more money you save. Second key principle is booking in advance, or basically the further in advance you book, the cheaper it gets usually. A lot of people have this outdated conception that if you if you wait till the last minute, you'll save the most money. But flights, this isn't true anymore. Hotels, most of them, it's not true anymore. Every now and then it will happen, but most things you want to book in advance because it's just, if they encourage that behavior more, then it means that they can book, 299 out of 300 seats on their plane, or 99 out of 100 of their hotel rooms. Whatever it is, they can, book more stuff, make more money, and they want to encourage that behavior. So last minute, even though it would make sense for them short term to sell that room or sell that seat for cheap, they just don't do it because they want to encourage you. It's whatever it is. So yeah, book in advance, book with flexibility, you'll save some money. But let's get into the more gritty pro tips than just book in advance and book flexible, because that's not really saying anything, is it? That's just me saying, yeah, there are things you can do. But what things? How do I do it for super cheap? Because like I said, I booked Bratislava, which is on the other side of Europe. Like I had to cross something like 6 countries to get there. It's by flight, and for flight and 2 nights in a really, really nice hotel there, like a really nice one. It's less than £100, which is like $135 or something like that, or 135 euros. And we're like, wow, that's actually quite expensive. But bear in mind, that's an extreme example with a nice hotel. How do you travel for the cheapest way possible? Because this is something that I'm always curious, I'm always checking, I'm always like, ooh, I could do that. So first of all, I'm not sponsored by these people I'm about to say. If you want me to say I hate them, I can. But I'm going to mention these guys a lot, and it is a really great website. It's called Skyscanner. It's based in Scotland somewhere. But basically, they're an aggregator of all the flight websites. So instead of the way you want, you have to book a flight if you don't use this or other services, is you have to be like, okay, I want to go from this place to this place. You have to kind of guess a date that you might think will be cheap, and you might, get a pretty good rate. But with this website, it checks every single, aggregator of bookings. So, if you think about I think it's called Expedia, all those sorts of websites, and all the airlines, like every airline, and it tries to find the very cheapest flights at the very specific times. So if you want to go on specific times, you can do that here. It's kind of a waste, but if you want to be like, okay, I want the cheapest month to the cheapest place, you can literally say, I want to fly from my airport to anywhere, what's the cheapest place and cheapest month to do it? And it will give you a whole list. Like right now, I put in London Any, because that's my closest group of airports. I can get 20 of them, and I can see that if I'm willing to be flexible, I can go to Belgium for £15 return. I can go to Germany for £15 return. I can go to Ireland for £15 return. Norway for £17. Netherlands for £26. And those are real prices you can pay. And I think the cheapest flights I've ever done was probably $9.99 to Copenhagen from London. And you might be like, okay, so if they're always this cheap, why do you ever pay more? Because I paid like £40 per flight. So the reality behind it is getting a £15 return flight is quite tricky. I think they always must make a loss when they do those sorts of things. And even if you don't make a loss, sometimes when you get those super cheap flights, you lose money in the long run. So, first of all, pro tip, get cheap flights using Skyscanner. They'll find the cheapest flights. And in case you're like, oh, but I don't want to go with Ryanair, I only want to go with British Airways. Can I just, quick point here. So I've flown with EasyJet, Ryanair, British Airways, Wizz Air, and another budget one. I think it was like Germanwings. Oh, they're the guys who crashed the plane into the mountain, so that's probably why they were so cheap. It's searing endorsement right there. I've flown with 5 of those, and it's funny. The best one was actually the low cost, the Germanwings one. That I guess because they flew into a mountain, they wanted to improve their service. But every other flight, they were all basically the same. Like they're all within like 2% of each other in terms of how good they are. The only benefit to going with a France Airways, a British Airways, or whatever, from what I can tell on the short haul flight I did, on long haul it's way better. But as far as the short haul flight goes, there's basically no difference. They gave me a newspaper. I think it was a copy of the Daily Mail too, so I was just reading it like, thanks for the news, guys. They gave me a newspaper, and the plane was less full, but I think for triple the price, not worth the money. So if you're the sort of guy that's like, I don't like flying with the budget guys, if you want to save money, I'm just saying, I'd say do it. Like, it's one of those easy, there's not many things in life where if you spend 3 times the price, you get, like, 2% better things. Better flight is one of those things. I think first class is a similar thing. Again, you probably shouldn't be flying. If you're listening to this, you're probably not the sort of person who's flying first class anyway. But pro tip, don't do that. And you can also when you book on Ryanair or EasyJet, they're trying to do these like extra £2, £3 things. Like, we can get you, we can text you the details for £2. We can pick your seats for that. If you're traveling by yourself, you don't need to book those. If you're traveling with a group and you're like, we need to sit together. If you book at the same time, it always gives you seats together. So. Pro tip right there. But yeah, now you've got your cheap flights from wherever you want to go to wherever you want to go. Is that always the best thing to do? Because Skyscanner only scans the sky. Pro little tip as far as getting between country to country. If you're going from 2 European countries that are close by to each other, always take the train, because it's usually pretty cheap if you take like slower trains. And if you and the exception to that is going from like London to anywhere in Europe, always fly for that. And that's kind of that. You can look up trains on like separate websites. Boom, you can get to your country like that. Avoid the Eurostar at all costs because it's garbage. I'll go into that later. But now you got your path worked out. But before you book it, you need to work out where to stay, because presumably this isn't going to be a day trip. Although that would be pretty cool, I think. Like I said, I mean, at £17 to Norway, why not go to Norway for like a single day and fly back on the same day? But that's actually a terrible idea. But basically, now you need somewhere to stay, and you might be like, hotels, they cost like, 200, 300 a night. And I have seen very expensive hotels. I once stayed at a hotel that I didn't pay this, but it cost like, I saw on the wall, it was like 600 for the cheapest room, and it went up to 1,000. And I was like, because I was like, this must be the wrong hotel I've walked into. But yeah, basically, there is ways to save money and get amazingly cheap hotels, because, a lot of people are on business or whatever, and they'll just pay whatever price the hotel gives them. But there's a lot of rooms that always end up empty if the hotels try to charge 600 euros a night for the room. So pro tip for this is there are a bunch of websites that do this. I think Skyscanner does it, and I haven't actually used them before, but there's a Last Minute, which has like a cool top secret like thing that's exclusive to them. There's loads of different hotel websites. Pick your own one, but Last Minute is my one of choice. And basically, you can search it, and you can get, like, you put in your criteria, you put in your thing, and it's like, boom, hotels for your night. And they're like, we need to sell the room. So it's one of those things where you get super cheap room. Like I said, I think £50 for 2 nights in a 4-star hotel pretty close to the city centre. We can pick amazing examples and get even better than that. But that's the basic point I want to raise it. If you just if you're willing to if you're willing to settle on whatever, if you're like, I'll stay in a hostel, and you book in advance, you can literally stay for like £6 a night in some places. And if we get that with the Norway £17, we can be like £29, and that's flights and hotels covered entirely. So yeah, pro tips right there. Use a website to check your hotels. There's a bunch of really good ones. And if you're flexible and if you book in advance, you'll save a lot of money. And you might just think, sorry, Kat, have you just said go on Skyscanner, go on this hotel website, and that's it? Kind of, but now for the more complex ones. So now you've found your flight, you found your thing. Now let's work out the ways that you're going to lose money if you don't think about them. So first pro tip is all these cheap flights, all the ones that, there's £17 from Norway to over to Norway. Let's see where it's from. It's from Manchester, which is a bad example, but usually they're from the vague out of the way airport. So if you're in the UK, there's like Stansted, which is just in the middle of nowhere. There's a few other ones, I think, like East Midlands Airport. They're really, really tricky to get to. And if you need to get there at the times that these flights will be, which will always be late at night, early in the morning, then you'll end up having to pay ridiculous amounts on like a taxi, because there's literally no other way to get there. And I think this is the really clever way these kind of cheap flights get you, because although it might be, let's say, £17 to get from Stansted to Oslo, or it might be £30 to go from insert a better airport here. You might be like, oh, I'll save that £13. But the reality is, you'll spend like triple that just to get there. And also, the pro tip, when you get these cheap flights, always check where the other airport is too. I mean, it's easy enough to know, don't go to Stansted unless it's really, really cheap and there's no other options. But, it's not easy to know, what does Oslo Reich mean? Because that's where this one's going. I don't know what Oslo Reich is. That's in Oslo, right? That means it's good. The reality is, I believe it's Oslo Reich, which is actually a good 2 hours away by train. And it's like, does this even count as Oslo anymore? And yeah, that's a pro tip right there. Always check where your airport is. Check how to get from there to the place. Some places just don't have any service. Like as in Ljubljana. Did I get that? Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. I'm learning Slovenian. But when I was in Slovenia, the airport for the longest time just didn't have a bus service. So you got a taxi or you walked, I think it was like 20 miles. And it's like, oh, that sounds pretty bad. And yeah, pro tip, if you can get a closer airport, then it's sometimes worth the money because, sometimes it'll only be like an extra 20. But if you can't, then usually there's some service. If it's a bus that costs €10 or whatever, it's a bus. If it's this, it's that, it's that. There's always a way to get to the city, and you need to know what it is, and you need to know how expensive it is, because the train from Stansted to London is £30, which is that's gonna outweigh any benefit you get from actually going there instead of another airport. So that's kind of everything, I think. So pro tip, 2 pro tips: be flexible. Book in advance and you'll save a bunch of money. Even if you don't remember anything else, just you'll save a bunch of money of that. And the pro tips after that, check where your airport is, because they always, at least, the good deals are always in the really out of the way airports, because I guess they, in inner cities, they have to fly at specific times, and then they don't have as many slots for budget airlines. I know the biggest airport in the UK, you might think is the cheapest, but Heathrow, the biggest one, I think it's the biggest airport in the world, in fact, but it's the biggest airport in the world, but because so many people want to fly there and there's only so much space, it means every landing slot costs a bunch of money, so it's an expensive airport. And there are cheap airports because people don't want to go to them, and they're far away. So one of those 2 things is usually the case. And besides that, don't take the Eurostar, because it's so much more expensive than any flight ever. Like if you want to get to Germany, you might be like, we'll just take a Eurostar than train. Nope. If you want to get to Belgium, vaguely questionable because there's so much tax on the airline. But basically, the Eurostar is just a plane that takes an extra hour, gets you to the heart of the centre, but costs a bunch more. It's minimum £72 for a return to anywhere it goes. Like that's where prices start. If you book in advance, you're flexible, and they just go up from there. I think if you book on the day, it's like 150. So each way, that is. So very, very expensive. Try to avoid that. Try to avoid out-of-the-way airports, and make sure you know how to get to your airports, because that's how they'll get you. These are some pro tips I learned for traveling in Europe. It was mainly just how to save money and do it cheap. Hopefully, I said something worthwhile in there. I spoke for like 12 and a half minutes. That's how much I like travel. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to going to Bratislava in January. It's going to be pretty cool. I'll probably do a travel vlog or 2. But if you're wondering why I'm doing it in January, between now and then, obviously there's going to be the update out of Minecraft content. This is actually kind of funny, but I like to keep myself on like alert mode, because if it comes out, I'm gonna be grinding away on the videos, because I'm being pumped for this for like the past month or so. And there's also video games coming out, and I want to play video games like Fallout 4. If I was in another country when that came out, I'd be on the flight home immediately, and yeah, that's how you avoid that. So I could keep on talking like quietly in the mic, like, so how are you doing today? Like, yeah, what's that all about? But instead, I'll leave you. I'll let you finish drinking your beverage. Some of you are drinking beverages right now, but finish the beverage and then we'll leave. So goodbye, everybody. Have a nice day, and I'll do a podcast soonish, maybe. Yep, that's a setting point. So goodbye.